This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. So this is going to be the final rewatch that we're going to do for the Browns 2023 season, because this meant we watched all of the meaningful games from 2023. And I got a lot of thoughts on that. That's going to be a whole nother video. We're going to focus on this video about what happened in the wild card game. And when I look at this wild card game, I have three main points. One of the things that definitely happened in this game was that a lot of the duct tape solutions the Cleveland Browns put together to get to this point in the playoffs, and I'm not saying duct tape solutions like as a negative thing, right? If we're talking about long-term stuff, that would be a negative thing, but we're just talking about you had 26% of your salary cap going IR, so you had to duct tape some things together week to week to make it work. And that was something that the Browns were able to get away with against worse teams. Because if you look at the teams that the Browns beat in that stretch, it's really obvious what happened. When the Browns played good teams after Watson went out, or teams that were playing good football after Watson went out, they did not fare that well, right? The Broncos were playing good football. They were in the middle of their best stretch of the season. The LA Rams were playing excellent football at that period. They were playing excellent football, best stretch of their season. The Browns played them in the middle of that. They did not do that well. And when you played the Texans in the wild card game, obviously that didn't go well. And that's not because the Browns were a bad team or that the defense is overrated. It's just that the Browns had 26% of the salary cap on injured reserve, which meant that all those duct tape solutions, they're fine when you're playing a flailing, about to blow themselves out of the playoffs Jaguars team in the middle of their worst stretch of the year. It's fine when you're playing a Chicago Bears team that was pretty much dead upon arrival and you still only beat them by 3 points. It was fine when you're playing a Houston Texans team that's without CJ Stroud and a lot of the key pieces on offense, right? Tank Dell was hurt in that game as well. So you didn't play their best hits. And then you played a Jets game who already stunk. And they were at the point to where I think Trevor Siemian was starting against you. You're going to look good against those opponents because those opponents are not as good as you, right? Think about when the Browns were healthy and they played a team like that, right? The Cardinals and the Titans come to mind. The Browns beat the Cardinals 27-0. The Titans, another like opponent that was pretty much dead upon arrival when the Browns played them. Browns beat them 27-3. Talking about a point differential of like 49 points over those two games. So if the Browns were healthy, I have a good reason to believe that they would have destroyed these teams that they beat down the stretch to get in. And it's not to discredit Joe Flacco or to discredit what the Browns were able to do last year. It was still something very difficult to do. Winning these games against teams that weren't as good as you, still difficult to do when you're dealing with this many injuries. But when people have this giant reaction to the Browns losing in the wild card and making assumptions that this means negative things about where the team is going for 2024, that's where I do have to point out what actually happened at the end of 2023, because what happened in this playoff game was not a result of the Browns being overrated, and they always were overrated from week one. It's more of a result of, hey, this team that had 26% of the salary cap on injured reserve and found little ways to stay afloat throughout that stretch, it finally all came caving in for them because there was no duct tape strong enough to hold off a team that has an actual franchise quarterback and a solid enough defense that can take advantage of the fact that you're playing too deep down on your left tackle and right tackle depth chart. Because the Browns' offensive line, I mean, just crumbled, and Joe Flacco crumbled along with it. Not to say that Joe Flacco didn't make some good plays in here. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the whole thing crumbled, and it started at the line of scrimmage for the Browns offense. Point two, what happened with the defense? This is a big question a lot of people are asking. What happened with the defense? I think it's simple. It's two words: big plays. They gave up a lot of big plays. They had 5 big plays that I think really shook how this game shaped out to be. And I'm going to get into the film room to talk about that. So I want to look at the 7 big plays that the Browns potentially could have given up, the 5 that they definitely did give up, and see what exactly went wrong in those plays and like what should be concerning and what should just be kind of thrown out with the result of this game to see, where this Browns defense could improve in the future. One of the main things I'm going to hit on in this is it's not that the Browns aren't good at zone. It's that I think their zone looks are just a little bit too vanilla. Like they just run a lot of basic zone looks, and it's really easy to manipulate those if you don't get the pressure that you want. I understand the wish to keep it as simple as possible, given what happened to this defense in 2022. That being said, still got to be a little bit more complex than what the Browns are right now in the secondary. I think that's actual concern for this year. But let's look at it. First play, I think, the Browns have this tendency to identify where they think the Texans will find a mismatch, right? So they identify where the Texans think they'll find a mismatch. They think they're going to go and attack Taki here. Right, so they identified that Taki might be the vulnerable man on this play. They kind of overcorrect for that, though. So what they do is you see Taki, they're throwing a crosser at him. You see Juan Thornhill immediately sees it and then comes to help Taki. And then Greg Newsome actually does a great job of identifying that Juan Thornhill is coming to help and trying to carry the spot that he left. It's just too late. Now, what really broke this play open is that Ronnie Hickman got cooked here. You look at the top of this route, look at Ronnie Hickman. So we're going to move our eyes instead of looking over the field middle like we were. We're going to focus here on Ronnie Hickman. If you do that, you notice that Ronnie Hickman gets kind of caught up here, right? Backpedal. And then the tight end does a good job of putting a foot plant, opening his hips. And at that point, Ronnie Hickman is severely cooked. He has to have better instincts than that in that situation. Browns don't get enough pressure to not let this long route develop. It's another thing that went wrong here when Ronnie Hickman got beat. I know a lot of people blame this one on Greg Newsome because you can see Greg Newsome on the TV broadcast chasing him. That one was Ronnie Hickman. I would have put that on Greg Newsome. I put that on Ronnie Hickman. And just a good play made by C.J. Stroud as well, too, to see it. So, I mean, you got to give credit where credit is due here. Wasn't just the Browns messing up. This one is another big play here. This is a run play. Now, I think there are a couple things that go wrong here on this play. First thing that goes wrong is I want you to look, and maybe I can even zoom in at these two, the interior defensive tackle. I know that was a big circle for the two players, but first we're going to look at these two guys on this play. So I think this is the initial thing that goes wrong here. So did you catch it? First thing that goes wrong, and I don't know why this happened. It might have been a design of the defense. First thing that goes wrong on this play is a run play. Is that not Shelby Harris, Jordan Elliott and Dalvin Tomlinson just kind of let the guards kind of slide up into that second level, right? Like not enough resistance there. It kind of feels like it's intentional, and it might have been, right? That might have been the design of the play on defense. It's like, hey, let him go. We're just trying to get to the quarterback. Might be that. Don't love that. But what that allows to happen is you let these guys get to the second level, which means they completely wipe out your linebackers on the perimeter of this play. So let's zoom back out here. Get a full image. So now that they're through, look, they can wipe out both of your linebackers. So Taki's not in this play. Nor is JOK. He's not in this play. Alex Wright gets kind of walled up. This is a good job by Nico Collins to kind of just trap him. And then that allows that tackle to pull. So now what you have here is a bad situation because not only do they have the numbers, they have one offensive lineman, and all the Browns have is two defensive backs, maybe three defensive backs, and a late coming JOK who just beat his block. And the result is predictable. And if it ain't for Juan Thornhill getting a little bit of something there, that's going to be a touchdown almost. So big play there. I think it starts at the defensive line, right? You let those two guys through, completely wipes them out of the perimeter. Boom. Third big play that you let up in this game. Let's watch it. Oh, yeah, this one, I don't really have too much to blame on anybody. Like Greg Newsome could have did a better job covering here. I think Denzel Ward is doing what he's supposed to do, right? He's carrying and he has the middle of the field and he's supposed to stick close to the numbers. Juan Thornhill comes in to try to take over that seam. If that wide receiver tries to break that towards the pylon, Denzel Ward is there. Like, I think that's what that coverage is there for. This is cover 3. This is pretty base. Like, I think it's 3 buzz because you can see the safety buzzing down there. So it looks like basic vanilla 3 buzz. And this is what I mean by the Browns coverage. It can kind of be just a little bit too vanilla in zone. Right? I don't think there's an issue with running a lot of zone. It's just, this is a little bit too vanilla, right? So you have Denzel Ward here, deep middle, same here. You got the safety buzzing, so he's curl flat, seam flat, curl flat, seam flat. That's cover 3, right? That's what it looks like. So the circles aren't great, but that's cover 3. The way the Texans beat this, I'm going to let it play out, but the way the Texans beat this is pretty easy, right? They got a great play call in here first. I think that's the first thing. And what they run is a 5 and 9. So it looks like an out, and then he cuts it up. It's a 5 and 9. It looks like a sluggo, but inverted, right? That 5 and 9, and let me make this picture a little bit clearer, makes it so, and it's ran by Mechie, so he runs this well. So Newsome, who's curl flat, sees this and thinks, okay, I can stay my depth. He just ran a out, so I have good position there. Denzel Ward sees this and sees the out because Mechie does a good job selling it and thinks, okay, let me get on this seam. Let me get eyes here to watch the wide receiver is going to pop up over the middle of the field. So Denzel Ward becomes blind about him. So does Greg Newsome, which means when he cuts this upfield, it's nothing but space. We'll watch it again with that in mind. So you see Denzel Ward sees the cutout. And this, again, great play call, great play design by the Texans, knowing the Browns' tendency in this coverage. And way to dial it up and know it's there. This probably was a check at the line of scrimmage more than likely, but they saw it. So the Browns get here. You see that Denzel Ward, the second he breaks that out, takes his eyes from here to here. Boom, right? He sees that cutout. He's like, okay, not for me. And again, the reason Denzel Ward is doing that is not an accident, in my opinion, because he knows the weakest coverage defender on the field is Sione Takitaki. So what does Sione Takitaki have? He has the curl flat in the middle of the field. If you run something by him right here, he's super vulnerable. So you have to keep eyes on him. And I think this is why the Browns went after Jordan Hicks in free agency, because stuff like this, and we saw it earlier in another play where like their lack of trust of Sione Takitaki in coverage was causing issues for them when it comes to giving up big plays, because now because they don't trust Takitaki, they have to leave Newsome on an island, which leaves Newsome vulnerable to this. And you can't really stop this because there's nothing Newsome could have done to really defend that better. He's just not the type of corner that's going to be able to defend that kind of route with that much time. And that's not like a slight to him. It's most corners. But that puts Newsome in an impossible situation. The only way you can win this play is if you win at the line of scrimmage and you force a bad throw or a rush throw or a sack, right? It's the only way you can win this one. So this just takes advantage of the Browns. Like, they have to watch Takitaki. He has to see that. Once he sees that he's not running in Takitaki's zone, he has to go eyes over here and watch what happens there. The Texans take advantage of that. Greg gets caught not playing the best like zone coverage ever, but I don't think it's terrible, right? It's still like good leverage. If that's an out, he's in position. And he's still like kind of like hedging for that being like a double move there. It's just a good exploit there. I think that's why they got Jordan Hicks, because Jordan Hicks is a better athlete. And I think they feel we don't have to do this kind of stuff as much if when we're in nickel, we have Jordan Hicks in at that other linebacker instead of Sione Takitaki, which means that Denzel Ward could be here on a play like this and make something happen. I think that's the thought process behind bringing in Jordan Hicks. So, this game can kind of illuminate that. Now, I do think that Greg Newsome was hurt in this game. So, like, I'm going to be on the record. I think he was hurt. I think he was on the injury report for a knee, and it looks like it. He does not look like he's fully healthy. So, like, I know there's a lot of Greg Newsome here, but please also keep in mind he was hurt. So this might not be the best representation of what he is and is not capable of. But here, I mean, the lateral stuff with Greg pops up, right? You get him moving. This is actually a slant and go, right? So you get him moving side to side, and then you break it north south, and he can't do anything about it. And look, he came late, and they snapped it right when he came there. Like, they were doing a good job of watching him, and then just took advantage of him there. And that's on Greg. Greg's got to just play better coverage there and be in a better position to win that. They're leaving him on the island. That's just on Greg there. He's got to hold up a little bit better than that. Now, again, the Browns there's two ways to beat this. You could get pressure so you don't get a double move ran on you. And this is part of just the risk of what the Browns run, right? When you run this much man in the NFL, you're going to get beat. This is going to happen to any corner that you throw out there. And if you don't get that pressure there fast enough, they're going to make it. And that's how the Texans kind of won this game on the offensive side of the ball. They didn't win play to play. They made like 5 plays offensively that won them this game. And the way they got to those 5 plays were almost always hinging on extended time in the pocket. They won the line of scrimmage. The Browns did not win the line of scrimmage in this one. We could blame the secondary. We can blame Randy Hickman. We can blame, whoever you want to blame, Jim Schwartz, whatever. But the truth of the matter is, when I look at this tape, what's obvious to me is that this is stuff that could have happened to the Browns all year if they don't win the line of scrimmage battle. When they win the line of scrimmage battle, the same stuff happens in the back end, because this is just naturally going to happen when you are as on an island as the Browns secondary is, you're going to get beat. But when you're not winning at a high level, you're going to give up these big plays. The Browns weren't winning at an extremely high level here, and they gave up these big plays. And give it up to C.J. Stroud and its Texans offensive staff, because not only were they getting the protection they needed to win this battle, but C.J. Stroud was making some damn good throws under pressure, right? Like this one, he gets hit while he throws it, and he just smacks that one right there, right? He's making some damn good throws and pressure to take advantage of it. And it's not often that the Browns will give up opportunities, right? 5 opportunities a game for a big play. It's not often that a quarterback is skilled enough to make 7 of those opportunities, So you got to give your hat off to CJ Stroud, right? There were 2 more opportunities where there were big plays in this game that could have been made. This one here is, again, a similar thing that happened earlier in the game. And then this one right here to Nico Collins, where they just catch Ronnie Hickman flat-footed again. Ronnie Hickman gotta have better active feet. He gets caught flat-footed, gets caught leaning a lot. He's got to trust his athleticism. He's got to trust that he can react. He doesn't need to swing first. And a lot of times he gets caught swinging first or waiting. He's got to get better at that. But that's an undrafted rookie for you. But that's the big play stuff that cost him. I mentioned the team kind of crumbling because the weight of the injuries finally seemed to matter when they played better teams, and that Joe Flacco kind of crumbled under that weight. And that's not to say like he didn't have composure or that he was nervous and that's why he played bad. I'm saying even in the best of times with Joe Flacco, things had to go right around Joe Flacco for you to be able to get to the ultimate prize with him. We are over a decade removed from the best of times with Joe Flacco, and it was obvious. Like, he had some good moments in this game where he made some really nice throws, but the weight of his mistakes in this game was just so heavy that it just destroyed the offense. Let's look at it. Now, we talked about it on the defensive side of the ball, about how this game was a story of the Browns having 5 bad plays and the Texans just finding a way to capitalize on them because of good execution, good quarterback play by C.J. Stroud. The Browns offense was the exact opposite story. Outside of like 3 plays for the Browns offense, I thought they played well in this game, but those 3 plays were devastating. The one play that we all know of is the first pick six that happens, and this is just an awful decision by Joe Flacco to throw this ball to try to avoid a sack here. And I get the instinct, right? You finally got in field goal range. This game is within 10. If you take a sack here, that might take you out of field goal range, but it just wasn't that dire of a situation yet. This is first down, right? The Browns just got a huge first down conversion, like 2nd and 16 with David Bell. And by the way, David Bell played really well in this game. But the Browns just got a big 2nd down conversion. It's first down. And Joe Flacco makes a horrible decision here. He should have just took the sack, right? But instead, he tries to either throw this ball out of bounds, or maybe he was like, I'm going to hit David Njoku. And then something went horribly wrong with the football because it's nowhere near David Njoku. Right? Like, this thing just shoots over David Njoku. So, like, I think he's just trying to get this thing out of bounds. Or maybe he was deciding, do I go David? Do I throw it out of bounds? He decided late, and it was just too late. Horrible decision. Just take the sack. It's first down. Just take the sack. Right? It's not the end of the world. It's a 55-yard field goal. You have 3 downs to get like 7 yards to make that makeable. You just did this. There's no realm where throwing that makes any sense. There's just no realm. And then it gets picked off. And then it gets returned for a touchdown. Let's look at the second pick six. This pick six was just a bad decision here, right? He just doesn't. I think he locked on to Harrison Bryant, and he wanted to throw that hitch. He felt like it would be open pre-snap. He locked onto it. Never saw that the linebacker didn't move. He just kind of locked on there. And he had Kareem Hunt right there in the hook. He had Kareem Hunt. He could have hit Kareem Hunt there. Right. He could hit Kareem Hunt. I don't love that play call, by the way, or on this down and distance, but he could add Kareem there. Instead, it's a pick six. He tries to force it to Harrison Bryant. It's a bad decision. It's two mistakes, man. Like, outside of that, I thought the Browns offense was fine in this game, but you make those two mistakes, you turn two drives into points, 14 points for the Vikings. I mean, not the Vikings, the Houston Texans. And that's what, plus 17 forgivable points for this defense. So the defense gave up, 28 true points. Offense responsible for 17 of the Texans' 45 points. It was just the Browns made mistakes in this game that the Texans just did a really good job of capitalizing on. And I think that's why this game went the way it did. Another thing that went wrong in this game, the blocking was terrible. I'll talk about more of it once we get back into the studio, but that's the film element of this. The Browns had no business winning this football game. The tackles that they threw out there were James Hudson and Garyon Christian. They got predictably destroyed. At one point, James Hudson got hurt, and the Browns were rolling out a backup left tackle. Like, that's even worse. So they were just destroyed on the offensive line in this game, the whole game. So Joe Flacco played poorly in the second half of this game, partly because of that, right? The line just was no longer holding up. Joe Flacco felt like he had to do all of these things to make up for it. That led to Joe Flacco making some awful decisions. Joe Flacco's awful decisions put the defense in the point to where the game didn't really matter anymore because you were down by 30. At one point, the Browns were coming out of halftime, driving with the ball on the 40, looking like they could put this game within 7 or maybe even within 1 score with the touchdown. 2 minutes later, the Browns are down 24 points. In 2 minutes, they went from down 10 with a chance to reduce it to 7, maybe even 4, to down 24 points because Joe Flacco threw 2 pick sixes. But Joe Flacco didn't throw those pick sixes with clean pockets and a perfect vacuum. Joe Flacco threw those pick sixes in the lap of the defense that was getting home on pressure all day because you were down to 2 tackles who just weren't high quality enough to withstand any kind of serious test by a serious team. And the Texans were a serious team. All of that duct tape that they had on offense was fine when you weren't going up against really good teams. But the second you were, that duct tape fell apart. That's predictable. The pieces to this offense that we expect to be good were good, right? The interior of this offensive line, I thought, had a strong day. I thought Kareem Hunt in this game had a strong day. I thought Amari Cooper was pretty good in this one. David Njoku was excellent in this one. Even some guys around the edges that aren't really the guys you depend on, like David Bell, was really good in this game, right? The same can be said for the defense. Miles and Laramie Tunsil went back and forth on that edge, and I think Laramie Tunsil did get the better of Miles in this game. That being said, Miles was still pretty good in this game. Denzel Ward, I don't think he was atrocious in this one. Greg Newsome had a bit of a rough day. Martin Emerson was fine in this game, but where it really hurt you was at the safety position where you had a injured Juan Thornhill playing and Ronnie Hickman playing, who just looked lost at times. And I think that's what ended up happening to this team. You can blame it on one thing. You can point the finger at Jim Schwartz. You can point the finger at Joe Flacco. You can point the finger at Kevin Stefanski. But also you can point the finger at the injury report. You can point the finger at the IR. You can point the finger at the fact that the Browns were just extremely injured by that point of the season, that the expectations that people had for this team were never going to live up to it. I think the inevitable weight of all of those injuries finally took this team down to the point to where they could not compete with a team playing good football. I don't think anybody needs to be blamed or held responsible for that. I think that's just a natural consequence of being injured to this point. And I think that's what happened. And I think that's, to me, why this wild card game really doesn't bug me when I'm thinking about the long-term future of this Cleveland Browns team, because the hope is that they're not always going to have 26% of their salary cap on injured reserve, right? The hope is that they have their starting running back, their starting quarterback, and their starting tackles. The hope isn't that you're going to be running this low on personnel by the time you get to January and February. But that's just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.